Gibraltar, located in the south of the Iberian Peninsula, is known for its impressive rock and its unique geographical position that places it at the crossroads of two continents and cultures, just 22 kilometers from the African coast. Although you might expect Spanish to be the predominant language of this region due to its proximity to Spain, the linguistic and cultural reality of Gibraltar is much more complex. Next, we'll explain why Gibraltar is not part of Spain and why Spanish is not its official language. To understand the current linguistic situation in Gibraltar, let's recap a bit of history. It was the year 1700 when the King of Spain, Carlos II of the House of Habsburg, also known as the Bewitched, died without leaving any heirs to the throne. This triggered the so-called War of Spanish Succession for control of the throne between Felipe d'Anjou and Archduke Carlos of Austria, where France and Spain faced off against England, Holland, Portugal, the German princes, and the Austrian Empire. In 1704, the territory of Gibraltar was taken by an Anglo-Dutch fleet, and Queen Anne of England quickly raised the British flags on the small peninsula, even though the territory was initially claimed for Carlos of Austria. And since then, these British flags have continued to fly over this territory to this day. In 1706, Gibraltar was declared a free British port, and later in 1713, the Treaty of Utrecht was signed, where the war-weary nations involved agreed to end the dispute, and in which Felipe V de Bourbon was recognized as the new King of Spain, in exchange for Spain ceding certain European territories, such as Sicily, the Kingdom of Naples, the Spanish Netherland, among others. In this Treaty of Utrecht, England was granted the islands of Minorca and the Gibraltar Peninsula, although Minorca was recovered years later in 1782 after the independence of the United States. After the signing of the treaty, Spain has tried on numerous occasions, without success, to recover the territory of the Rock, since they consider Gibraltar to be a colony, the only one in Europe, and because it is in the middle of Andalusia, Spanish integrity is violated. That is why the Spanish government has been claiming sovereignty over that territory before the United Nations for several decades now. Throughout the last 3 centuries that Gibraltar has been under British rule, it has become a key naval base for the United Kingdom. So what is the current political situation of Gibraltar? Well, Gibraltar is currently a British overseas territory, meaning it is not an integral part of the United Kingdom, but it is considered under British sovereignty. This status grants its citizens a British passport and a certain degree of governmental autonomy with its own constitution, parliament, and elected chief minister, who manages internal political affairs. In return, the United Kingdom provides security, handles foreign relations, and directly appoints the governor of Gibraltar. This British territory has imposed English as the official language used in administration, education, and the media. The United Kingdom has made it clear that it will never intend to negotiate sovereignty over Gibraltar unless the Gibraltarians themselves wish it. However, in the last 2 referendums held in 1967 and 2002, the Gibraltarians voted overwhelmingly to remain British, with 99.64% and 98.97% in favor, respectively. But in 2016, something unexpected happened for most Britons and even for Europeans: Brexit. After the United Kingdom left the European bloc, new doubts arose about the future of Gibraltar because the vast majority of its inhabitants voted to remain in the European Union. As we know, the United Kingdom made its exit official in 2020, and at the time of editing this video, agreements are still being negotiated between Gibraltar, Spain, and the European Union to regulate the movement of goods and people at the border. There is a possibility of removing the wall that divides Spain from Gibraltar. Of course, this is without the possibility of the United Kingdom giving up sovereignty over the region. This gives us a perspective on why the only official language of Gibraltar is English. The constant flow of British population and people from other parts of the Commonwealth, along with the territory's strong British identity, it has relegated Spanish to the background. It is used mainly for trade and communication with neighboring Spain. However, this does not mean that Castilian is not spoken in this territory. In fact, a kind of vernacular language has developed, which could even be defined as the only living and evolving Spanglish, since the Castilian language in its Andalusian variant is fused with English in its British accent. And this speech is called Llanito, which also includes words from Ladino, Arabic, Maltese, and Italian. This linguistic mix is a direct reflection of the rich migratory history and the strategic location of Gibraltar on the European continent. In Gibraltar, you can observe a curious mix of British and Spanish traditions. British pubs blend with Spanish tapas, and local festivities reflect a fusion of customs that is unique in the world. It is worth noting that the use of Llanito is a key component of Gibraltarian identity, both in everyday life and in government identity. Therefore, as we have already mentioned, although the inhabitants of Gibraltar mostly consider themselves British, a sense of their own identity has also emerged. So much so that many, when asked whether they consider themselves Spanish or British, firmly respond that they consider themselves Gibraltarian, which fills them with pride and a sense of belonging to this territory. However, many young people nowadays prefer to go to universities in the United Kingdom and seek new opportunities there. But not everything is rosy for the outlook of Spanish in Gibraltar. In fact, it's quite alarming. After World War II, the United Kingdom adopted a monolingual English education system. However, an acceptable coexistence between the two languages was achieved during the following decades. But soon, the massive use of technology and the opening of satellite communications brought a new threat to Spanish. Soon, the new generations would be more attracted to English, which led to Spanish being confined only to family heritage passed from parents to children. And even today, its use is seen almost exclusively between grandparents or parents and their grandchildren or children. This situation sets off alarms among Hispanists because at the rate things are going, the linguistic heritage of Spanish will soon be lost among young people. It could be generalized that nowadays older adults predominantly speak Spanish. Adults and some young people speak Spanglish, and children speak English with some words in Spanish. A trend that will inevitably make Spanish disappear if nothing is done about it. The Spanish government has already done its part by opening a branch of the Cervantes Institute in 2011. This has been well received among the Gibraltarians, but the future and survival of both Llanito and Spanish will depend solely on themselves. Therefore, the local government should also consider the possibility of introducing a bilingual education system if they want to preserve their traditions Only time will tell whether this decision will be implemented or not, and whether Spanish and Llanito will continue to be part of Gibraltar's cultural identity. And that's all for today. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to this channel. I also invite you to turn on the notification bell so you'll be reminded when there's a new video. Thank you. See you soon. Subtitles by Jose Escuela.